All right, good morning, everybody. Good to see some faces haven't seen in a while. And we're gonna go ahead and get started with public comment, and then we'll kind of formally gavel down. So David, I think you kind of do that. So we'll hand it over and listen to some public comment.
All right, I think we need to let a few folks roll into the attendees room here. But we do have two different public comments today. The first being from Bree Sillery from NMCEH. And
she's got 2 minutes.
Bree, you'll have, is 2 minutes or
1 and a half.
And Bree, you'll have 1.5 minutes. So you brought in here.
She wasn't in. She didn't hear you say.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, she's in attendees. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Good morning. I am here on behalf of the New Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness to ask that the Homeless Coordinating Council vote to endorse House Bill 111. The measures included in this legislation address many of the barriers low-income families and individuals face. Face in a time of crisis, while addressing barriers that homeless service providers and civil legal service providers face in responding to homelessness and housing insecurity. Through the implementation of the source of income protections, prospective tenants will have an increase to their choice of home rental through the use of the housing voucher, because they will not be legally discriminated against. On a systems note, the policy to prevent source of income discrimination will allow the money invested in our community through federal and local housing vouchers to be effectively expended throughout the city. The increase of protections for all renters facing eviction are important as it addresses the system flow into homelessness and allows for realistic timeframes for people renting to apply for rental assistance. As we all know, when people slip from housing insecurity to homelessness, it becomes exponentially more difficult to recover, financially and emotionally. We need to stop the flow into homelessness, and House Bill 111 aims to do just that. Thank you.
So much, Bree, and we'll actually be talking about that bill on this agenda, so we appreciate it. Okay, David, go ahead.
Okay. And I believe, Deb, we have one more.
Yes, Maria. I don't know her name.
Maria Griego. There she is. All right. Maria, you'll be on with a minute and a half to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. My name is Maria Grego. I'm the Economic Equity Director with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty. And I'm here today to encourage the city to endorse House Bill 111, which modernizes would modernize the Uniform Owner Resident Relations Act and the New Mexico Human Rights Act to balance the rights of tenants and landlords in eviction proceedings and to prohibit landlords from discriminating against tenants based on source of income. It also establishes a housing council to serve as the state's interdisciplinary coordinating body to integrate, coordinate, and align housing services. A quick synopsis of the amendments. For renters who are behind on rent, it extends timeframes to come current on rent before eviction proceedings can be initiated. It also requires magistrate and metropolitan courts to maintain a resource list of nonprofit legal service providers and state and local entities who can provide rental assistance, making sure that landlords get paid. It requires landlords to consider all lawful sources of income in assessing a prospective tenant's income eligibility and ability to rent. And this also, House Bill 111 also addresses the recommendations that the Urban Institute report, the report that the city paid for, in reducing evictions, adopting legislation to protect households, and using vouchers to prevent discrimination. So we would ask you to endorse and support House Bill 111.
In case the questions come.
Mayor, that is all we have for public comment.
All right, thanks so much for comment on that, and timely as we'll be discussing a little bit around legislation. So let's go ahead and officially gavel in. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting, and we do have folks can see on the screen for a quorum of our members. And so we have the agenda here in front of us, and as a just as kind of a overview, we'll of course do our housekeeping with respect to meeting minutes. And then we're going to have some status updates from our kind of respective categories, system of care, and quite a bit on housing. And then we're going to actually kind of our special topic today is really around legislation. But we'll also give some updates on our coordinated community framework and research and assessment, of course, and our lived experience input section as well. So lots to go over. Sure, we'll be hearing lots from Carol Pierce, but before we start, let's do our minutes. So folks have seen the minutes hopefully at this point and want to see, are there any changes to the minutes? Any questions on them? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move approval. Garnet Stokes.
Thank you, President. Is there a second?
I second it. This is Julie, Mayor.
Great, thank you, County Manager. So approved and seconded. Anyone opposed? All right, we'll go ahead and consider those minutes approved and move on to our first item. Of course, top of mind always, COVID-19 system status update. And so we'll touch on a number of folks in this, but I think we are starting with Carol Pierce.
Yes, but Dr. Ziodonis, would you like to go ahead and give the vaccination update?
Sure. So the good news is that the infection rate seems more stable, and our hospitalizations are also stable and less than they were a couple weeks ago. So of course we have to keep all of our great public health measures in place with safe distancing, masks, and washing our hands. So that won't go away even if you're fortunate to get vaccinated. From a vaccine point of view, we're really excited about how the pit has gotten organized. Being new to New Mexico, I'd never been in the pit until our soft launch day, and it was really what a beautiful facility. But more importantly, the city and UNM and athletics and the health center were all working well together. We appreciate the support of the police and others that made the traffic go in and out smoothly. We had a great launch week with about 750 vaccinations the first day, and then we were going over 1,000, and our goal was to get to 3,000. We were following all of the DOH guidelines on going through their website as people would be eligible and show up with ready to go. We had one minor glitch, which we've learned about, which was, it gets cold in New Mexico, and we needed to have better protection for people when they provided the vaccination if we did it in a car for the people who were handicapped or with a wheelchair, or that was just the best way for them to get it. So we've also worked on that processes. Unfortunately, what you see across the country has also impacted us. So the national supply that comes to the state has reduced our ability this week to not keep working up to the performance level that we can do. We are appropriately able to give the second vaccination for those who had an appointment and it was timely for them to do that. We haven't finally closed the health science centers vaccination location, so that we do have some options in addition to the pit for the next week or so. I was speaking to Secretary Collins last night, and so we are anxiously awaiting for the federal supply to come at a higher level to New Mexico so that we can get back into our routine. But we appreciate all the city's support and our teamwork together on this important matter. So I don't know if there are any other questions, but that would be my update.
Thank you, Dr. Ziodonis. And I wanted to add that on Saturday out at our Westside Emergency Housing Center, we did our first vaccination clinic following the Department of Health guidelines. So people 75 years of age and older, and anybody who was younger but had chronic health conditions were vaccinated with their first vaccine. That was 112 individuals at the WEC on Saturday through great partnership with all of our partners and the Department of Health. We're working on vaccinations for folks in the hotels as well that meet that criteria. We're following that, and no dates are set yet. We do have a date set for the second dose for the WEC, and we're coordinating with all of our homeless providers to make sure as people move in the system that we can locate people for that second vaccine. So I wanted to also add that for the immunization update. Mayor, would you like me to go on to the system of care for people still under COVID?
Yes.
Okay, I will. So as of yesterday, the system of care for city, county, and UNM in the state, we have about 781 individuals that are in the care of our 5 hotels and the WEC. 329 individuals out at the WEC, 431 individuals in the wellness hotels, and only about 21 in what we would call the health hotels, and those are for COVID positive individuals. So we have seen the decline there. Of the 431 in the wellness hotels, about 196 of those are children. And as we have talked about, there are other places for families that might want to leave being doubled or tripled up with families and would prefer to be in a hotel with a bathroom and 3 meals a day. And so we're continuously working with our other providers that do have family shelter to find the right fit, whether that be Barrett House, whether that be Joy Junction, Safe House, depending on what the situation is. Similarly, we continue to work with people through rapid rehousing to get people housed. And I did want, while we've got Deputy Uval on the phone, to just talk a little bit about our rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing.
Good morning, everybody. So we were very fortunate that in our FY21 budget, we received $2 million in one-time money for housing vouchers, and then $1 million in an additional $1 million in reoccurring money for housing vouchers. The one-time money we have set up as rapid rehousing, and then the reoccurring money we have set up as permanent supportive housing. Rapid rehousing is a model for helping people kind of quickly get into housing and then providing time-limited assistance while they get back on their feet. Permanent supportive housing is a model targeted more towards people with significant disabilities who really need ongoing, non-time limited support to stay housed. I think we all can agree that the most effective way we can keep people safe right now during this pandemic is to make sure that they have a place to call home and that they have a place that they can shelter at home, like those of us with housing are able to do. So it has been really a top priority for our department to get these rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing dollars out the door and to get contracts executed with our local nonprofit providers so they can begin housing people. For the rapid rehousing, we decided to contract with 8 different local nonprofit organizations. 4 of those are youth providers, so they will be focusing on serving young people experiencing homelessness, a group that we know is very underserved in our community, particularly around supportive housing programs. 2 of the contracts are with Cuidando de los Niños and Heading Home, and they are specifically targeting folks who are staying at our wellness motels. And then we've got 2 contracts with 2 smaller organizations that serve adults who are often disconnected from the system but have good relationships with these organizations. So as of today, 2 contracts are executed. They're contracts with Heading Home and Cuidando los Niños. So they're beginning to house folks that are staying at our wellness motels. We have an additional 5 contracts that are being routed for signature right now, or will be within the next couple days. So we're excited about that. And then we have 1 contract that we're just still figuring out some fiscal stuff on the budget with the vendor, but should be executed soon. And then in terms of the permanent supportive housing, we did make the decision to contract with a local nonprofit provider with deep experience providing permanent supportive housing. Again, some of those vouchers will be specifically for people that are staying at the wellness motels, and some will be for folks that are come through the coordinated entry system. And we are in the process of getting that contract executed and should have it executed within the next couple weeks. So that is my update, and I'm happy to take questions if folks have any.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Sure, Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa. That's good news. In terms of the, can you give us the name of that provider you're working with permanently supported housing money, or?
Yes, yeah. So we are working with HopeWorks, I think, which probably all of you are familiar with, for that contract.
Okay, and so folks know if they're interested in this, there's some way for them to find out who the providers are, right, and how they can apply for this funding.
Are you asking for people who are experiencing homelessness who need the services? Yeah. So I think, yes, I think a couple pieces there, each contract is a little unique, so for the HopeWorks permanent supportive housing contract, 60% of those they serve will be coming through the wellness motels. So as Carol has talked about in previous meetings, we've got our fast track to housing program set up at one of our wellness motels. There's service and housing coordination for the families and individuals that are staying there. So they'll be making the referrals. They'll be identifying folks who are good fit for this permanent supportive housing programs and making those referrals. And then the remaining households will be referred through our coordinated entry system, which is our community-wide system, kind of our prioritized list of folks that are looking for permanent supportive housing. And so those, the best way for people to get to access this resource is to complete the common assessment for the coordinated entry system. And then the Coalition to End Homelessness, which manages that system, will make referrals over to HopeWorks.
So you've got the rapid rehousing, which is pretty flexible fund. It's short term. It's to somebody can get on their feet, maybe young families who just, need to find work, whatever the situation is. And then the permanent supportive housing is it just essentially subsidized rental?
That's correct. The rapid rehousing, the general fund rapid rehousing that I was just talking about, Bill, will be up to 1 year's worth of rental assistance and supportive services. So exactly, folks that are really able to get back on their feet within that year time frame, often folks that can and want to work but need some help finding work, that sort of thing. And then permanent supportive housing will be for people or households where one of the household members has a disabling condition. That could be mental health, substance abuse, physical disability, or chronic illness, a developmental disability. And it is not time limited, although many people move on to other things eventually, but it includes help paying the rent as well as case management services to make sure that folks are able to keep their housing.
Now, I just have a quick question. The Section 8 voucher program, is this similar to that, or Section 8 single family housing? I get confused between the two programs.
So Section 8 and permanent supportive housing vouchers are similar in that they're both providing rental assistance. So it's helping a family or individual find a rental unit in the private rental market. The household pays 30% of their income towards the rent, and then who's ever paying for the voucher, whether it's the city or the housing authority or HUD, pay for the rest of the rent. The only difference is that the permanent supportive housing comes with case management services as well, whereas Section 8 does not come with any services.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
used
have my
all those,
questions.
so. Thanks, Commissioner. Anything else, Commissioner?
No, thank you.
All right, welcome, Counselor Benton. Good to see you. Let's see, any other questions in this neighborhood? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and move on to our next topic here. We mentioned we're going to spend really the majority of our time. The plan is to discuss pending legislation and whatnot. So we'll go ahead and dive into that section. And Carol, are you going to walk us through this as well?
Well, I think, thank you, Mayor. I think we've got a couple people, and I think President Stokes, I know Dr. Dameron wasn't able to join us, but she's very excited about the Homeless Coordinating Council and had be up at the legislature. Do you want to go ahead and talk about House Bill 133? I know that's coming from the university, President Stokes, and everybody's got the bill that was sent out as well. Or I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I think you're muted there.
Is short and sweet, but it specifically is focused upon providing $100,000 to support a pilot program that would reduce college hunger. And so it's a specific need that our university and others have recognized, and I think even been acknowledged in this group. So you've got the copy of the sponsors of this particular bill, and so this is something that we are supporting.
All right, thank you. Any questions on HB 133? So maybe let me take this chance to pause on a specific issue. We should probably have a meta discussion on how we're going to handle legislation. So let me I guess say that like in general this sounds great, right? I'm personally happy to support that. But I know I can't speak for the government of Albuquerque and City Council. So and I'm not quite sure. I'm sure this committee, if we want to, we could really start voting on stuff, but just knowing the government bodies, we all have kind of institutions to do this. So I guess I'd love some input from council and commission, but I think it might be more appropriate for us to sort of hear these and then take it to our respective governing bodies. But curious other people's thoughts.
Mr. Mayor, President Stokes, so I guess we've got the bill before us, but I'd like to see a little, I'd like to read it. I didn't read it. So are there any other bills, or do you have any requests from the state legislature to help with student homelessness at all?
I don't have, if you're addressing that to me, Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Thank you. To my knowledge, I don't recall anything on our list related to that specific issue. So this was the primary piece of legislation that my conversations with Barbara Dameron were, specifically in support of issues with our UNM or with students.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions on this or on kind of the question on how to handle these? And of course, we can as a committee, because this is a committee set up by MOU and various joint agreements, so we certainly can take a position. All right, so I think what yes, Councilor Benton.
Yeah, sorry for getting on late. I had some problems with my computer, so I had to get out the old trusty iPad here, and I have not read it. I've actually had whatever. I've not been receiving emails recently on my city computer, so I've got to get that squared away. But yeah, as far as procedurally approving, at least with regard to the council and the city, normally we'd go through the intergovernmental relations committee, which that obviously takes time, and the committee would have to meet, we would have to vote and so forth. I think that would be the normal city procedure for formally supporting any legislation. At the same time, the formation of this council and the nominations to this council have been made. And it would, maybe we just need some clarity on this, that if Mr. Mayor, I think on the city side anyway, to say, well, if there's a duly appointed member, that we could, on this narrow set of issues, or fairly narrow, that we would be able to, just go ahead and represent our branch of government, et cetera. So I'm kind of trying to puzzle my way through this, where we could be more quick on our feet, especially when we're in the middle of a session. And but I don't have any brilliant ideas other than to say, well, it's okay, it's all good stuff that we're trying to support.
Okay, understood, Counselor. Well, let me propose two things, and I'm fully willing to not do these, but why don't I propose, number one, that if people haven't seen these, and there's questions and so forth, we do have a little bit of time in terms of the session and such, where we could, if people aren't comfortable making any kind of decision one way or the other now, we could certainly roll them to the next 2 weeks and hear them out and the explanations and whatnot, and then make a decision at a later time. So that's one option. I think the other thing is, perhaps the way to kind of navigate this is we could take a vote on recommending legislation to the county and to the city. So sort of this committee is recommending that it be looked at in those processes. And if those processes take a long time, as Counselor mentioned, they do often. It's okay. Advocates can certainly know that this committee sent a recommendation, but also it's not confusing sort of city procedures with committee procedures. So yes, County Manager, yeah.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, what I was thinking of is, I know that we're going to be meeting with the city and with UNM to talk about our legislative priorities. And then we can, just a suggestion to make it easy for everybody, because I know that we all just got the bills and everything. We're trying to look through them, but we were going to just meet together and kind of decide how we would be supporting one another. And then maybe we can give you, we can bring before this group our recommendations, and then we can get them approved if you would like.
Okay, I think that's no doubt all of us have folks more involved in the legislation, than folks on this call. So why don't we do that? So what I'd suggest is, let's hear these, learn about them, ask questions, and we'll pick them up in the respective kind of government affairs working group that we have anyway. And then in next meeting, we'll see where we want to go from there. All right. Okay. I think that sounds like a good way. So, without sort of formalizing, is there any objection to this game plan? All right. Great. Let's proceed with that then. So let's walk through these and ask questions as you will. So next one is Behavioral Health Data and Children's Mental Health Act.
And President Stokes, I understand from Dr. Dameron that this wasn't ready for prime time yet, and that a bill hasn't been formed, but then if it is, by the time the small group meets, we could talk about it. And so I see an affirmative on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, House Bill 111 there.
Yes, so this is the one that there's a lot of excitement about, and by excitement, I mean positive excitement, and that we heard people speak to this today on the public comment time. People received the 2-pager fact sheet on this a couple weeks ago, and then we included the bill in the with the agenda. So I don't know if there wants to be further discussion on this, the Housing Modernization Act. I think Commissioner might be saying.
Yep. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Oh, sorry. I have a question about this, I guess, if the bill sponsors are there. So it essentially says that, gives other criteria or protections for folks who could face eviction. So in terms of the rent, does this rent just keep piling up for these folks and they have to pay it at some point, even though they can't make the rent and they're evicted? How does that work?
I can try to answer that, Commissioner O'Malley, but also Mayor Keller, if possible, we have a couple folks watching our meeting who have helped to craft this bill. Is it possible to invite them or just allow them into the meeting to answer that directly? We just got a chat from Maria from the Center on Law and Poverty. I think could probably answer that better than I could.
That'd be great. So Lisa, why don't you, or if others see names or folks, just either type it in the chat or let us know, and we'll start with Maria.
There she is at the top.
So David will bring her in.
Should be in, or she should be able to speak.
Go ahead, Maria.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilor O'Malley. Councilor, this is not, I think maybe what you're thinking of is like an extension of the eviction moratorium. And that's not what this bill does. It simply extends timeframes for tenants to pay rent. So right now, under the law, tenants only have 3 days from the day they're given a notice of late rent to get current on their rent before the landlord can initiate an eviction case in court. So this bill would allow tenants a minimum of 10 days to become current instead of 3 days. And then it also allows tenants to avoid the ultimate eviction, even if they've gone to court, if they can pay off any rent that's due, any other costs that come with the judgment, so like court costs, filing fees, anything of that nature, so that they can get current and stay in the home. But the goal is to get folks current, and it also the expanded timeframes also allow for folks to seek governmental rental assistance. So we know that since the pandemic, many nonprofits and governmental entities have stepped up to create rental assistance funds. But because of the very short time frame of 3 days to pay from the time you get the notice, it's very difficult for those agencies to get the money out. So this would just provide greater timeframes for them to issue payment to landlords.
And so that question would go to, thank you for that clarification. That would go to Lisa. Is that enough time for folks to apply and likely get, like with the rapid rehousing? I guess that would be a fund they could tap into. Is that enough time for them to get through the system?
Commissioner O'Malley, just to clarify, the rapid rehousing likely would not be the best pot of money at this point in time. That's really for folks who are experiencing homelessness right now. We're trying to get them back into housing, but we do have eviction prevention through our health and social service centers. And we have some additional federal money that I'll be talking about a little bit later on the agenda. I mean, to be honest, I think 10 days is also a pretty aggressive time frame to like sort of process an application, approve someone, and then turn around a check. Sometimes landlords are willing to hold off on pursuing the eviction order once they know that a check is coming, once they get a call from the Health and Social Service Center saying like, this person's been approved and we're cutting a check expected on this date. But it is certainly much better than the 3 days that we have right now. And Maria, you're welcome to add to that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner O'Malley.
No, I'm sorry. So that leads us to, always this, we set these things up, but is there a program that we have money in that can address this issue? Or are we just, otherwise, are we just putting off some time? I mean, additional time also could mean that people could ask family or whatever, right? To see if they can get some more income. But are there programs that in place now that would serve this population who, is it federal money or that's what I'm asking.
Commissioner O'Malley, pre-COVID, the amount of eviction prevention funding available in our community was very limited. During COVID, there are significant new resources available. So last year we used some of our CARES dollars to really scale up our eviction prevention. We also received additional CDBG dollars under the CARES Act. We're using that in 2021 for eviction prevention. And I'll be talking about this in a couple of minutes. The city of Albuquerque has received $24 million in emergency rental assistance under the legislation that Congress passed in December. So as of right now, there are significant resources to help renters pay their rent arrears and avoid eviction.
I know the county received 5 million, I believe. I don't know if Julie wants to talk a little bit about that, but it's my understanding it's directly. So this is the kind of money that would go towards folks in this situation. That's what I'm asking is, this could help those people. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I may just add one more thing, Commissioner O'Malley. The expanded timeframes also include additional time before tenants have to go to court. So they have the 10 days to pay the rent, and then they also have more time before they have to be in court. So at any time, if they are able to get current, the eviction will not happen. So it's really more than those 10 days. Also, this addresses what we are hearing from the courts, the Metropolitan Court here in Albuquerque specifically, that they would like to set up some sort of eviction diversion program. These programs have been very successful in other states and cities, but because of the really tight timeframes under the law, they're not able to, because statute demands that these hearings happen very quickly. And so the courts have said it would be great if we had more time, and we could, with that additional time, we could set up these eviction diversion programs.
I'd also just want to add that in addition to the enhanced kind of protections or sort of balancing the rights of renters with landlords and property owners for renters who are behind on the rent, this bill also does another very important thing, which is it prohibits source of income discrimination, which means basically that a landlord cannot deny an apartment to a potential renter because the renter has a housing voucher. Right now, that is actually allowed. So a landlord could say, no, I'm not interested in renting to this person because they're paying for the rent through Section 8 or a permanent supportive housing voucher. That is one of the challenges that we find in administering these housing voucher programs, is finding landlords willing to accept the voucher. So if this bill passed as is, it would prohibit landlords from being able to deny someone an apartment purely because of their source of income, and housing voucher is considered a source of income. So I think that's, as we look at scaling up the number of supportive housing vouchers in our community and talk about that as a strategy for impacting homelessness, this is an important part of the puzzle to make sure that folks with those vouchers can find safe, decent apartments to rent.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and this is in response to what Commissioner O'Malley brought up about the $5 million that we on the county side will be giving grants to landlords directly for delinquent rent payments. And so from what I can tell, that application will open on February 22nd. And that's money from the federal government from last year.
Great, thank you for that, Commissioner. Maybe just a question on that. Is that money tied to a individual so they're not evicted, or is it just landlord support?
Well, the intention is that it is so that renters will not be evicted, And so, yeah, it's so that people won't be evicted, so that they can be brought up currently to their rent, pay the rent, and the money, it just goes directly to the landlord. So the landlords are the ones who would apply for that.
Okay, but just certainly makes sense on the intent, but it is so it's not going to be tied to a specific tenant though, like in the grant.
I would think that there would be some documentation for, tenants who are delinquent and can't make their rent. So I'm not sure how much documentation they're requiring for renters, but the intention is to keep people in their apartments.
Okay, well, 5 million is good news, and the intent sounds great. I guess if I would just say if there is a documentation of that connection, we'd love to learn from it because I know it's difficult administratively. But if you guys can pull that off, I think that's something we'd be really interested in learning how you did. And hopefully that'll be the case. Okay, other items?
I think, Mayor, the next items is still in the legislative priorities for action in the spirit of just update. We'd mentioned this last time in the city's capital ask is 10 million. Capital request, again, this is for our gateway facilities that we're building out. And we can, and the group that County Manager Morgus Baca mentioned, we can further discuss that in that UNM City County group. The next item on the legislative priorities for action, and I'll turn it over to County Manager Morgus Baca, is, and I know this isn't a bill, but just part of the BHI initiative, and some really good collaboration has happened between city and county and looking at the ages there on these youth.
So I'm trying to, and I'm sorry, Director Pierce, you're talking about, I'm not sure which initiative, because I know we have a lot, and I'm sorry, I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Oh, that's okay. This is where I think last time the county mentioned the importance of support for more services and housing option for transition aged youth. And this was, does that help?
Yes, and sorry about that.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about something else later, but yes, absolutely. So we did, Quinn actually reached out to us, and we're all in 100% in agreement with her. What we were doing is we were kind of looking at the kids that are coming out of foster care, and she said she thought we should make that more broad. And so we are absolutely doing that. So it basically includes all of these children. I think it's from 16 to 24, I believe is the ages, right, Carol? Something like that, or 18 to 24, I'm not sure. But it includes all of them to assist in them to find not just kids getting out of foster care, but everyone to help them with whatever their needs are. So yes, and she's been great, by the way, and thank you for that. She's a great resource to us.
Go Queen.
Good job, Quinn.
Yeah.
And Julie.
Yes. No, that was just such a win-win of just hearing what each other's thinking and just really being able to collaborate. Thank you, County Manager, for that. The next one, I guess, Mayor, that ends the legislative getting teed up, and it sounds like the action is this. I know we've got a date set to get on our side, Isaac Padilla and other folks together to look at legislative priorities for alignment. So I think that's the next step there.
Okay, thank you. And I might just ask whether it's coming from UNM or city, but I would like to pair these, if they come back to us, with let's just go ahead and get the right, if it's being led kind of by an advocacy group, great. Let's get somebody from that group to help do Q&A. Obviously a sponsor would be nice, but I know they're busy and in committees and things like that. But And the other question I just had was, who are the sponsors for HB 133 and 111? I know we could all look it up, but if anyone knows offhand.
I think I can say House Bill 133 is Joanne Ferrari,
Yeah.
Karen Bash, and Melanie Ann Stansberry. And the other one,
Got it. Right.
you got
here.
it right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Never mind. They were right in front of me. Okay. So any other questions on legislation? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and proceed then to a little discussion on Treasury funding. And I think this is another Lisa topic.
Yes, I just
And,
want to tee up before I hand it to Deputy Uval, who mentioned this in the prior conversation. What's the city of Albuquerque, we have a weekly meeting to just really align all of our eviction prevention work. And subsequently, there are weekly meetings also with the county and MFA to make sure that we are aligned as a community and looking at criteria so we can make this as least confusing to our community members as possible. So with that, the opportunity recently came to all states across the nation to get Treasury money for eviction, well, really emergency rental assistance. And this is definitely in light of the pandemic. State of New Mexico received about 160 million. I think I've got my numbers correct. And in our request from the city, we received 24 million, as well as I know the county can speak to their amount. I think it's about 6. So we are all looking at what we can do to really align with this money and get this money out the door quickly. We've got a very short window. We're looking at all of our different options. But Lisa, I know we've talked about it a little bit already on this call, but anything you would like to add to that?
I can add just a little bit of detail, high-level overview of how the funds can be used and who they're for. So this is emergency rental assistance. It is for renters who are at or below 80% area median income. It can be used to pay rental and utility arrears. It can also be used to help low and moderate income renters pay the rent and utilities going forward as well for up to 12 months. So that's helpful. That's kind of a different than use than other pots of money we've had available to help folks stay in their homes. In addition to being for people at or below 80% AMI, the funds households need to have been directly or indirectly impacted by COVID and also need to be at risk of homelessness or housing instability. The Treasury published some guidance, 2 pages of guidance, so we're still, still lots of information hopefully coming out that, raise some concerns about the documentation requirements, but might be difficult to implement. But I got some good news this week that the Treasury Department, now under the Biden administration, will be publishing some updated guidance, hopefully this week, that make those parameters a little bit more feasible to implement on the ground. So we're looking forward to seeing that. I think I can say we're in very preliminary planning stages. We really just found out last week how much we're getting. So we're just planning now. And as Carol said, we are meeting every other week with the county, Bernalillo County and the MFA to coordinate because we all have this pot of money. And also Las Cruces also received some funding as well. So they're going to be joining that meeting as well. So we'll really be coordinating across the state. And that's all I have for now. And then County Manager, I'll let you fill in anything from the.
So, Mr. Mayor, no, I think that you basically said it the best. That's exactly how we're intending to use the $5 million. So, and it's good to be collaborating with you guys with MFA. And I didn't realize, and I had forgotten that Doña Ana County or Las Cruces was doing that as well. So I think that we're in good shape. And like I say, I don't think I have anything to add. So thank you.
All right, very good. Other questions on this or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to some of our updates from committees. And let's begin with the high impact strategies.
Yep, and I think all of our committee chairs, at least present, were just going to highlight some of the movement on high impact strategies that are highlighted in the coordinated framework. And Lisa, I believe you're taking it from coordinated.
Yes, yes, coordinated street outreach. And my Dr. Denise Lynn is also on the Zoom call. If we could admit her into the meeting, she is the other co-chair for this committee, which has had some changes in leadership. As many of you know, Sochi Campos Biggs, who is coordinating this on the city side, has left, so I'm filling in the interim. And Commissioner Colley resigned his co-chairmanship as well. So it is Denise, Dr. Lynn, and I at the moment.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Lynn.
Hi.
So we are really focusing on implementing these high impact strategies that we identified in this group. One of them is to establish a street outreach agreement that all of the different organizations in our community that provide street outreach services would sign on to. This is a short document. It's about 2.5 pages, but it really just establishes a foundation for what we mean by street outreach and kind of a shared commitment to collaborating and to participating in activities like data sharing and collaborative meetings to coordinate our street outreach activities. So I am hoping that at our meeting next week, the group will approve the final version of that, and then we'll begin to ask our street outreach providers in the community to sign on to it. A second high impact strategy that we are making progress on is the creation of a street outreach coordinator position. This would be a person that would be housed within one of our nonprofit organizations whose role would really be to coordinate all the different outreach providers. We're trying to do coordination right now, but it's like just adding more work onto everyone's already very full plates. So as we all know, that's only so effective. So this would really build bandwidth. Family and Community Services has identified funding for that position in our FY22 budget. So we're committed to funding that in our upcoming fiscal year. And then we're working with the Street Outreach Committee to draft a job description. So even though the position won't be housed within the city, we want to have a shared understanding and agreement around what that person will do. So we'll be working on that at our next meeting and should have that finished within the next month or so. So those are my updates, Dr. Lynn. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, I think you covered it really well. I don't really have anything else to add. Thanks, Lisa.
Great.
And Mayor, before we go to Quinn on youth housing, I do want to connect the dots that all of our prior discussion about housing vouchers, this coordinated street outreach is so essential to that, to really link people, find people that may be unsheltered, as well as sheltered. But I think there's a big connection between street outreach and how we coordinate among all the agencies and getting people connected with housing vouchers.
Mayor Keller?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that our newest commissioner from District 3, Commissioner Adrienne Barbeau, is delighted to join the outreach subcommittee. So I could maybe send you an email and get you all connected up so she can start receiving invitations to those meetings. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Ben.
Thank you, Mayor. So with regard to this, I brought up the question at our last meeting with regard to questions from constituents and from the general public about who to call when they encounter folks on the street who seemingly in need of assistance, or just things like encampments and so forth, ad hoc encampments and so forth. Are we looking at this? I guess this question is for Lisa with regard to with the street outreach coordination going on and coming together, which is really important. Do we see some sort of central helpline being created that would be part of that?
Counselor Benton, you know, one of the other high impact strategies that came out of the coordinated street outreach group is a model, basically, I mean, it's broadly worded, but a model for coordination of street, like how do we, you know, what's the mechanism by which we coordinate our street outreach efforts? And that includes when community members see someone that needs help, how to like connect that person that they see to resources. So I think that's a goal of that committee, to figure out the mechanism to do that. And that's where we need to add bandwidth. Like we need a person that's helping us think through that. Whether that's a central dispatch center or line, I don't know for sure if that's what will come out of it, but that's one of the things that we need to figure out, like what's the best model for doing that. But I think that is a kind of a medium to long-term goal of that committee, not something we're going to solve right away, but that we're working towards.
And then the other question I asked, I think the last time, we used to have kind of like a pocket-sized card with various helpline numbers. You know, I think since that card was in distribution, probably the state behavioral health helpline has been created. Is that something we could try to tackle at least? I mean, that again, it's difficult when I get these questions. Who should I be calling? You know, and really, I am very wary of saying call 242 cops. I know about the Agora helpline and so forth. I can, you know, depending on what the situation is, but there are a lot of situations where, you know, that again, the question from the community, my communities, is we don't want to call the police on this individual. We want some other way. And I think that's really what's difficult right now.
Lisa, if I can take this one, Councillor Benton, we still do have the resource card. And in fact, we could send an electronic copy out to folks. But what we encourage folks to do is to really call 311. And when they do call 311, our Sebastian, who does outreach along with Selena, do that, and they're coordinating with other folks as needed. That's the system in place. I want to acknowledge that we do still have I always get the number wrong, 768 help. That number does exist. You see that on billboards, and right now that's being, I think, transferred to 311 as the mechanism for that gets figured out with another agency. I think we had mixed results with to have a single number was great. I think it didn't fully pan out as we thought, but more analysis is going on in that. But it is 311, and we encourage that more than 242 cops, unless again it's something really big and 911 needs to be called. Thank you, Counselor.
Yeah, Mayor, just quickly, not to belabor this, but I have had reports from people who, and maybe this was in the past and it's not going on anymore, where 311 was saying, well, we can't really handle that. And they were referring people to 242 cops. So as long as we're kind of clear about that, that sounds great. That's what I'll tell people. I think that's consistent with what I've told people. And then if I could get that resource card, that would be great. Director, I'll get that distributed to our neighborhood list and through our council newsletter.
Counselor and all members, we'll send out a copy of that resource card to everybody. And then Counselor Benton, I will follow up with my fellow director in DTI and make sure that 311, I think that's solved, but I will definitely follow up to make sure there's alignment there on where those calls go.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. And just as as a reminder, we did try a hotline, right? We had that help, and actually it was resoundingly decided that there was a better way to do it, and that's how we moved it to 311. So I think in the spirit of like piloting ideas, we really tried it, right? And it just wasn't that effective. So, But let's make sure that indeed, 311 is doing what they're supposed to in that situation. Okay. All right, other items. Are we ready to move on to youth housing?
Yes.
Youth housing, Quinn.
Move.
That's okay, you can stay. I can project.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Youth Housing Committee has been meeting and I would say has been making successful headway. One of our first high impact strategies was the need for a youth housing needs assessment. And for those of you that are unsure what that might be, that is it encompasses a few different things. So not only does it count the number of young people experiencing homelessness, because we don't actually know that number, surprisingly. So that's one piece. And so this will get into definitions of homelessness. Young people may not identify as homeless. What do they identify as? So this will really just unpack that very clearly. Also involved in this assessment is an organizational assessment. So we would be looking at core youth serving agencies within Bernalillo County and Albuquerque to understand the services they provide, to also understand, top down within agencies, is their mission being projected outward to the young people. And this would also give us a place to go at the end of the assessment. So you can say, this young person is presenting with X, Y, and Z. This is the recommendation where they can go and get their needs met. And then also, what are we not doing? We'll be able to uncover that. In addition to the Albuquerque County study assessment, we'll say, we're also moving forward with a statewide assessment as well. And that's being spearheaded by CYFD. And it will work off of the county and Albuquerque assessment. So this first load will be a heavy lift, but that's okay because it will inform the second piece. And this is going to be just fantastic for our state. So I'm very excited for that. Let's see here. And then also there is a pretty good movement around the idea of a young adult shelter. So young adult shelter for young people 18 to 25 or 18 to 24, depending on, what we're talking about here. This would be a smaller operation. So we're not talking about 100 beds. We're thinking more like 20, smaller, because it's just a different kind of idea. The folks on the committee are really looking at this as a hub model. So, if this were to go to RFP at some point, I think the likelihood of a collaborative application is pretty high, which is awesome. It's like, cannot be understated how cool that would be to think about these agencies working together to provide service together, to help young people together. I'm going to say it together. It's fantastic. So I just want to, really thank you, County Manager, for amending that legislative priority, because really what it does is it creates more inclusivity in our community. I mean, you can't get better than that. So I just really thank you for hearing that and being flexible in that as well. And also, we were able to submit just a short recommendation to Deputy Uval around the permanent supportive housing vouchers for young people with early onset mental illness that would need long-term support to live independently. That was just submitted as a recommendation. So that, that hasn't had much movement since that point. So those are my updates for the Youth Housing Committee. My co-chairs are here, Nasha Torres, Asada Zarai, and Jen Skako. Is there anything that you all would like to add?
Nothing to add from me, Quinn. You did great.
Okay.
Hello.
Asada?
I just said I agree.
Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Just real quick. So we have a real good model for a youth shelter, Amistad. You all are, I don't know if you all are familiar with it in the South Valley, but maybe, you know, we can kind of work with them as well. And so we're very interested in working with the city on your initiative. So, you know, we're here to help. So just let us know how we can help. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, County Manager. Actually, Diana Lopez is part of the committee and she's really driving that. This is one of her, she's like, I've been saying this for 30 years. I'd like to have this happen before I retire because it would be great to say that. So, you know, we have Diana Lopez, Steve Johnson, they're really part of that. So, you know, the old guard of the youth shelters are definitely part of these discussions.
That's great. That's awesome to know that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. Then let's move on to our next item, which is Homeless Service Committee. And this is Quinn's work every day as well. So Quinn.
Hello again. Here I am again. So for Services Committee, we began outlining our high impact strategies for our community with a focus on emergency shelter. Looking at specific demographics, and that would include individuals, families, and young adults. As you've heard, the young adult shelter has kind of been moved to the youth committee, and they're taking that and running with it. And the strategies that were put forth for the shelters are coming in handy at this point to talk about how we're going to move forward with the acquisition of Gibson Medical Center, if that does actually go through. And then also in the collaborative conversation we've been having with HopeWorks about their possibility of having a So these strategies will come in handy for those conversations. Also, the city of Albuquerque has been working with UNM on a research and evaluation ask regarding the understanding of neighborhood impact, both with current and existing services, as well as proposed services in any of the gateway locations. So that ask has been put forward and we're waiting to see how that unfolds. Also, you know, we've been working on this lived experience survey for folks that have had lived experience. And so the initial focus groups that were around Gateway were more about what and why, like what are we doing? What do we want? This would be more about how would that look? So these questions, it's a very short survey. There's only 9 questions, and they're really about emergency shelter and day-to-day operation. So I'm asking things like, you know, do I need a place outside to store more belongings? Do I need, what matters to me in a courtyard? Things like that. So really having their voice front and center around what needs to be part of these campuses to make them effective. And to do that survey, I'll be working with our folks at the WEC and the wellness hotels, and also Sarah Keeney with Friends Meeting House is, I'll be working with her to get some folks to take that survey as well. We're in the final steps of finalizing that, so that will go live very soon here. And also one last thing, I did want to respond to Councillor Benton's question about who do I call when you have constituents asking you who to call. You know, if the person is camping near their property, if there is no threat of immediate violence, I would say, talk to them. Ask them who they are, just get to know them. And the reason I say this is a little relationship goes a long way in these types of interactions. If they're just somebody, for lack of a better term, that's down and out, sometimes they just want someone to talk to help sort of think about that. And I don't know if a constituent may want to have that conversation or not, but it can help. It can help to build the relationship to help somebody move forward. So I just wanted to say that. And my co-chairs are here, Commissioner Piscotti and Rodney McNeese. I'm wondering if they have anything to add.
I have nothing to add. Great job, Quinn.
Thank
This is Rodney. I don't have anything to add either. Quinn, great job. I think you summarized it well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Next, we'll go to the Affordable Housing Committee. Is that Lisa?
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to turn my camera off. Hi, everyone. I'm back again. Yes, the Housing Committee is also making some great progress on our high impact strategies. We do, oh good, Betty's here. She's my co-chair, and then Commissioner O'Malley and Councilor Benton have also been regularly attending these meetings, which is much appreciated. So I'll just give a quick report out on some of the things we've been working on. One of our high impact strategies is to develop more affordable housing through regulatory infrastructure and funding support for affordable housing development. So we have been working with the planning department to do an analysis of existing zoning code and the IDO to help us understand where the IDO promotes, like could promote or does promote affordable housing, and where maybe zoning and IDO prohibit the development of affordable housing. So really just at the start of that, but it's been very helpful. We really appreciate Jolene Wolfley from the planning department for really kind of orienting us to that world, I guess, around zoning and the IDO. We know that we want to increase funding for affordable housing, new construction and preservation, as well as vouchers, and that identifying dedicated sources of funding is important. So we have begun researching what some potential strategies are, not only at the local level, but at the state level as well. So more to come on that. I think we're just, again, in the initial kind of research stages of that. And then, of course, just to touch on what we talked earlier, one of our high impact strategies is also to increase tenant protections, including prohibiting source of income discrimination, because as we increase the vouchers in our community, and as the tight rental market tightens up, that source of income discrimination is a huge barrier for folks getting housed. So we're excited about House Bill 111 and the possible passage of that bill, and what that could mean for tenants with, or potential tenants with a housing voucher. So that's a quick update on some of the things we're working on. Betty, Commissioner O'Malley, Councilor Benton, please feel free to add anything else that I missed.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Lisa, you may want to just use a good example. That's the Brown property that's going out for an RFP right now. There's affordable housing requirements there, and that's a revitalization project, but also an affordable housing project off of 4th Street. I think that's a good example of what's, I mean, it's not as deep in some ways as that we wanted to go in terms of incomes, but it's a lot more aggressive than it, I would say, than in the past.
Absolutely, good example.
Yeah, and Mayor, I'll jump in just quickly. Yeah, the Brown started out with the income levels for affordability that were kind of the higher bracket, and we agreed collectively that with Commissioner O'Malley and Family Community Services that we would try to go down deeper into the 30% of median income range with the units. And, you know, there was some pushback from the neighborhood on that. We kind of just worked through that. And so that's it. That'll be a good example of how to develop those workforce housing and low-income housing tax credit projects in the future. I think it is important for everyone who's listening to note that the IDO did expand significantly the places where things like secondary dwelling units can be added. That's a really micro level of providing affordable housing, but that was expanded greatly within the IDO, and there's still opportunity to keep evolving and building upon that. And some of the discussion actually that we've had has pointed out that in some cities, like I believe Minneapolis is one, where they pretty much just ended single family zoning, the old fashioned R1 single family zone that doesn't not allow a secondary dwelling unit in recognition of their own needs for expanding affordable housing, not in these formal programs, but just taking advantage where people have a big enough lot to have a secondary dwelling unit that we should allow that, or they decided that they would allow that everywhere and not restrict any part of their cities to just a single lot and a single family house. So, that's a big one. That's a big lift. Commissioner O'Malley and I've tackled this a few times before unsuccessfully in earlier days, but I think the IDO does provide, at least on the city side, a venue for annual discussions and localized discussions about how people are encouraged to do that. And we have within the IDO incentives on the higher density projects as well for affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I also wanted to
yeah.
add that I think that one of the problems is with, folks and communities where they feel like there's plenty of bad examples of what they consider either affordable housing projects or just apartments that are not kept up or well managed. This whole idea of where this percentage is very impersonal. So when you say 30% or below the median income, people don't know what that is. They just assume that, if they don't know what it is, they'll make something up. And what the thing is that we're talking, when we start to put faces on, this is a person working at this job and has this many children, and this is where they would fall in that income range. So that we need to do more work in that area. I really feel strongly. That combined with assuring the neighborhoods that it's a rental project, it's going to be well managed, and then we're going to have high standards of design and quality. Those three things, I think, really make a difference to communities. At least that's been my experience. And we can point to many projects where, for example, the project that is highly touted is the one senior housing project on 4th Street. Councilor Benton was involved in the design of that. Was it a little more expensive? Probably, but the neighborhood's proud of it, and it's a affordable housing senior project. And nobody questions that, it's an affordable housing project anymore. They're like, well, that looks nice, it's well managed and it's kept up. Those are the kinds of things that make difference to communities. And I think once we start to have those conversations and start to put faces to who are these people that we are trying to serve at these lower incomes, I think that, again, that makes a difference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think if there's nothing else on this, let's move to our other items. We are running a little bit over, so I want to ask folks to keep it brief if you can. So facilities.
Good morning, everyone. Just a quick update on facilities. Fortunately, not a lot has happened on several of these fronts, but want to keep everybody up to speed. Our committee met on Friday. We've been talking about predominantly most of Friday's conversation related to tiny homes project, the project that the county has been putting together, and Commissioner O'Malley has been somewhat spearheading this in our community, and we're excited about bringing that project online. I'm hopeful, Commissioner, that we were able to work through the CEO issues that were a challenge for you last week, and so
yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So that project, I believe, will get us an opportunity again to provide some housing for some folks. We also talked a little bit about the three projects that we've had on our agenda for some time. And to be brief, the Gibson Medical Center, as you all know, is still in litigation with the ownership group in the city. We are working together to try and see if there might be a compromise in the making so that we may be able to move quickly on this. The attorneys are meeting, and hopefully we'll have some resolution here very soon, but it does appear that we may be able to get there. It's just a question of how we work through that. Love to give you more details on that, but it's really in the legal's hands and not necessarily in at this point in my hands as it relates to the process. West Side Emergency Shelter is, as you all have read, and we've talked about this in our committee pretty extensively on Friday, we are making some investments at that facility to fix some areas in the buildings, et cetera, around the buildings that needed to be done so that we can continue to use that facility for a period of time. It include a new, air conditioning systems so that we can ensure that we have good airflow in there, some work around the facility just to deal with landscaping issues with the winter months when we get lots of mud around out there, some issues associated with the disposal of trash, and then some upgrades to some of the areas inside the rooms so that where you can make them a lot more accessible and easier for folks to, if you will, live there for a period of time that they are there. And then also moving forward to potentially looking at building some amenities in that facility for a kitchen operation so that we can feed folks out there going forward. We've all talked about this. We know that it is so far out of the city that it's a challenge to operate, but we know that we're going to have to make some investment for some period of time as all of our other projects come to fruition. And then the last one, Mayor, is our North Downtown facility. We are continuing to work with HopeWorks in the hopes of getting a collaborative agreement with them to help us integrate their work with our homeless, potentially a smaller scale homeless facility there. We are looking at some property around the site. For those of you who may not know the site, it's on the corner of 3rd and Mountain Road. And our folks are reviewing that right now. And as we get closer to looking at the properties, et cetera, we'll be happy to come back and give more information. And the last piece, we did spend some time, and we're going to be exploring going into the future the idea of how we deal with encampments and whether or not there's some opportunity to do something with that moving forward. Still a question that has a lot of dynamics to it, but that's in short of what we've been talking about. And I don't know if Commissioner O'Malley or Councilor Benton would like to add anything else to that conversation. If not, Mayor, that's the facilities report.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I think we're updated on those, all our committee reports at this time. So I do know we wanted to touch on some of this research and assessment opportunities through UNM. It's kind of our last agenda item. So I think President Stokes, that's over in your neck of the woods. Go ahead, President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. Last time at our last meeting, I had announced that we had 2 UNM employees who would be working with the city and the county on the research projects. Suzanne Reagan from Bieber and Renia Aaron Foyt, who chairs our community and regional planning department. We're now working with Dr. Ziadonis and some members of his team. We had identified some additional individuals from UNM who will bring expertise to the projects, both project A and B. I spent some time speaking with Director Pierce about the goals for these research projects. And so what we need to do now is bring in the folks from the county and then the list of people from the city. And what I've said that we would do at UNM is actually set up the meeting of the appropriate people for projects A and B. I think we're going to separate these 2 projects and assign various people from city, county, and UNM so we can get greater traction on each of them separately. I'm sure we'll end up with a little overlap, but once we have kind of the composition from city and county, and then we will assign the individuals that we've identified where they best fit. I expect this is going to evolve. Quite honestly, I think the chairs of the various committees on this council are going to bring a lot of questions. And so honing in on exactly what is going to best serve, Albuquerque in terms of what needs to be answered quickly and what will we need to think about for the long term. I just expect it to evolve given my increased understanding of what it is that we really hope to accomplish with this research and assessment process. And with that, I think that pretty well takes care of it. I'm working with Dr. Ziadonis. I don't know if he wants to add anything to what I've mentioned.
I thought that was a great summary. Just a few other items that, we've got a lot of energy within health science, within the College of Population Health and nursing and the School of Medicine in particular that are quite interested for this partnership. So I think this will be terrific to have those kind of meetings. And I think as President Stokes suggested, we want to be responsive in a quick way to evaluation questions and what people with lived experience might be hoping in the community to be looking at. I'm also thinking we've generated a lot of enthusiasm, so there might be also ways to think bigger than that in the context of looking for more federal funding that might either be through NIH or SAMHSA or PCORI. And I don't want to forget the VA and their interest in the homeless, and also the ability to get funds from the VA that could be leveraged and supported on a big research mission. And I think, as I've shared with you all before, I'm an addiction psychiatrist, and this happens to be an area of research that I've done in the past. So I really appreciate this kind of partnership, as I've done when I was in Massachusetts and Connecticut, New Jersey, and California. So I think these kind of partnerships can make a difference. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Garnet and Doug, Dr. President. So with that, I think any questions on this?
Mayor, I just wanted to say, I mean, this is so exciting, and this is the reason why I think this council that we've created is really on the right track. You know, it's a massive undertaking, but to have the resources and the brain power of UNM tackling these issues along with us and identifying, you know, drilling down to really identify where the needs are, and to understand the link between behavioral health and homelessness better. It's just it gives me a great deal of hope. So thanks, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, well put. Other items on this? Other questions on this? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on this.
Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to give out a piece of good news. I saw that the county just issued our press release on the hotel voucher program that will continue the partnership with Bernalillo County and APS with the McKinney-Vento hotel vouchers for families and children who are at risk of being homeless. And this is something I want to give a huge shout out to Betty Valdez and Margarita, County Manager Julie. It was an idea that I had because people like me who are employed, people who weren't having financial issues, wanted to support people who were struggling. And so how this works is the county has set up a fund, a community fund through our quality of life program. And I'm encouraging, you know, everybody to just pitch in something to the fund, because that will go directly to hotel vouchers and directly to helping families and children through this partnership with APS get housing, you know, immediately. So the more that people give, the more we can help families and children. So I'm super excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's great news. Sorry, everyone. The mayor had to dart out very quickly. I apologize for that. But anyway, Commissioner, one question we had was, how do people get into that system, or how do they get access to the vouchers? And how many vouchers are there? Is there a number?
Yeah, Julie, can you talk a little bit about that? There is a place on the website, it's in our press release, the details, how to get money in there, and then the process that it goes through to get to the people. Julie, can you add any detail on that? Or Betty, maybe Betty's on this meeting?
I'm on the call, Commissioner.
Uh-huh.
And Julie, County Manager, I can help. So you can go to the county webpage or to the housing webpage. there's a link, and the donation can be made of any size, $10, $1, whatever it is. And the vouchers will just be according to the donation. So there's an unlimited amount of vouchers. It's not a specific number. It'll be according to the donations we receive. So right now we have a seed money for enough. We have enough for 3 families, we believe, to house. And then it'll be a living fund. So as many donations as we get will be the number of vouchers that we can support. So it'll be ongoing. It's really just a donation fund. It's not a number of voucher fund. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that gives us a little more clarification. I appreciate the fact that you all are doing this. Interestingly enough, it's sort of almost akin to what we're doing with the One Albuquerque Fund, where we're having folks do the same on our end. So good to know about the program, and you know, every little bit helps from wherever it comes from. So anyway, with that being said, any other questions for today? If not, look, I know we've taken a lot of your time, and we appreciate your time as always. But with that, stay safe, wear your masks, and thank you very much for all your help. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.